It's time to sit back, relax, and listen to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life will inspire, motivate, and empower you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. Change your attitude, change your life. And now, here's your host, Joan Herman.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life brings you interviews with some of the most inspirational and influential people in the world. It's our goal to educate and empower you so you can live your best life now. Thank you for taking time for yourself, and thank you for letting us be a part of your life. We have another great show for you today. Today's guest, Alexis Jones, believes that we all have the capacity to live fearlessly and inspire those around us to dream big. Leveraging her entertainment background as a vehicle to empower youth, Alexis launched I Am That Girl and quickly became an internationally recognized speaker, media personality, activist, and author. I Am That Girl currently has more than 1.2 million girls involved, with chapters in more than 24 countries. Alexis also founded the company ProtectHer, which is an educational program for high school and college male athletes on the importance of respecting women. Alexis has been invited to speak at the White House and the United Nations, and she's spoken to millions of youth around the country. She recently won the Jefferson Award, a national honor for public service. She is a member of Oprah's Super Soul 100, and she was featured as one of AOL's makers, along with Oprah, Ellen, Hillary Clinton, and Sheryl Sandberg. She is the author of the book, I Am That Girl, How to Speak Your Truth, Discover Your Purpose, and Be That Girl. Welcome, Alexis. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. My goodness.
What a bio.
I know.
Well, Alexis, you describe yourself as an all-American Southern Belle, Texas tomboy who grew up in Austin with 4 brothers. How did you go from being that girl to the one that I just described?
I think growing up with 4 of the brothers, I always say that, when you're raised with wolves, you have these wolf-like tendencies. And so for me, I think that we were a very competitive family. Mm-hmm. And part of being the little sister was, I was always trying to, climb things that I had no business climbing, jumping off things I had no business jumping off of, trying to impress my big brothers. So I think that even now when they show up to my events, it's always like I'm climbing higher in order to impress them.
Alexis, your messaging for girls and women is spot on. Today's expectations of beauty leaves many of us feeling less than and worthless. What do you believe are the pitfalls of relying on outside appearance as a measurement of self-worth?
Oh, where do we begin? Yeah. I think we have to also understand what we're up against. I think that's kind of the biggest thing is that, and specifically, for millennials, they consume 10 hours of media a day. Right? In general, we consume 3,000 brand images collectively a day. And so when we start looking at just the volume of images that we're consuming that, of course, are airbrushed, and now you have social media, which is basically your life airbrushed because it's a perfectly curated reel of how you want people to perceive you. And so I think it really does have some pretty devastating consequences. It's death by comparison. Mm-hmm. We're always looking at everyone else's perfect highlight reel. We're comparing our lives to these perfect images that don't exist in nature. And then we're looking at, the real flaws and the insecurities and the doubts and all the things that exist in our own lives. And so for me, I think working with girls and women and having dedicated a huge part of my life to the empowerment of girls and women, it's really only ever been to remind them that you do, in fact, have a choice. And I think whenever I get interviewed about empowerment, it's always that. It's the mere recognition that choice exists. And I think when we become aware of kind of what we're up against, then we can say, wait a second, in spite of all of the persuasion that's happening every day for me to feel less than and to create a sense of self, to your point, that's absolutely driven by external validation, how am I going to show up in my life today and make another choice that isn't contingent on that? So I'm always excited and inspired by anytime I get to have a conversation to remind women just how bad they really are.
Mm-hmm. And everything that you just said is 1,000% correct, because I want to change what young girls hear before they grow older and then have to undo all of the things that they're believing about themselves. Because I'm in my early 50s, and when I was growing up in the dark ages, we didn't have the constant communication that kids today must deal with. And I'm so grateful, even that my sons are in their early 20s now, because I can't imagine what it must be like for are teens, are young women that are continually bombarded with messaging. You can't escape it. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I think people like you it's just so important what you're doing, because you are literally, especially with, the suicide rate, you are literally saving lives with your messaging.
Thank you for that. That is a humble reminder of the importance of the work that we do. And especially I have an incredible team who, is able to make all of this happen. But to your point, I mean, in you saying you have sons, the reality is this isn't just happening to young girls, right? It's as powerful a messaging that's happening to young men as well, which is just this living a life that is completely contingent on, as I mentioned before, that external validation of, for guys, it's bigger, faster, stronger. From girls, it's, be beautiful and get attention from boys, which is kind of a lethal combination. And so I think that, for me, it's just how do we remind people that, and again, not just girls, but people, that they matter, and that everyone is imbued with such an important, passion and talent. And, how do we get them to recognize that early on before they get so overwhelmed by what they feel like they're lacking?
So, Alexis, you wrote a book called I Am That Girl. Describe that girl. What do you believe it means to be a powerful woman?
I think being a powerful woman is really is sourced from an authentic sense of confidence. Is just being so comfortable in your own skin. The fact that the statistics are saying that more than 80% of women don't like their bodies. So the idea that we don't even like the thing that houses us. So for me, it's not only that idea of can you be comfortable in your own body, but more importantly, can you own all of it, all of the good and all of the miraculous and all of the iniquities and all of the, fears, doubts, insecurities. I think that we tend to compartmentalize the things that we choose to like about ourselves, as opposed to saying, I'll take the whole package, all the good, the bad, and the ugly.
So, Alexis, on the flip side, we're talking about girls and women. You created a company called ProtectHer that strives to teach young men how to treat women. What are some of the key points that you teach our young men?
I think the key points are really you can't give something you don't have. The first time that I came into a locker room, I was asked to give a talk to the top 18 quarterbacks in the country on the importance of respecting women. And what dawned on me was that I couldn't just walk in and say, you need to respect women because of X, Y, and Z, because so many of these young men not only grew up in single parent households, but really didn't have male mentors teaching them what that even looked like. And so for me, it was taking a step back and saying that notion of you can't get something you don't have. So what does self-respect look like? What does self-love look like? What is, and getting them to think about that and getting them to practice that self-love, self-compassion, self-empathy, because, you can only treat others with dignity and respect when you first do it with yourself. So really it was, coming in and saying, I'm just interested in making sure that you love you well so that you're in a position to love others the same.
So that's the messaging for men. If you could offer a young girl one strategy to command self-respect, what would that be?
I mean, again, it has to start with her. My dad used to always say, you have to teach people how to treat you. That's your responsibility. And simultaneously, we will accept the love that we think we deserve.
Right.
And so this idea of we will continue to attract relationships that are directly in alignment, consciously or subconsciously, with how we feel about ourselves and how much we love ourselves. And so for me, and I learned this the hard way, I dated several guys in a row and I couldn't understand why, they weren't great guys. And I would find out that they lied or that they had cheated. And about the fourth guy in a row, I was telling my girlfriend, can you believe this happened to me yet again? I don't understand. And finally, tough love. And this is the testament of a good friend. She finally looked at me and she said, Lex, I know this is hard to hear, but you're the only common denominator. And I was like, wait, what? And she was like, what are you doing that you continue to attract the exact same type of guy in your life? Because I think if you start with you might actually get somewhere. But as long as you keep playing like kind of this victim to the circumstances and woe is me and I can't believe. And then I had to do some really hard work and lonely work and, the staring in the mirror kind of stuff and saying like, wow, babe, what's going on? Like, do you know how awesome you are? And the truth was I didn't. And so I did accept the love that I thought I deserved. And it took me a lot of work to figure out how to love me hard enough so that I could attract the caliber of man in Bradley that I would end up marrying.
And Alexis, I asked those two questions back to back from both perspectives because I wanted to show that it boils down to, no matter which side you're on, male or female, whether you're being the one that's treating a person a certain way or being treated a certain way, it boils down to how we feel about ourselves. When we love ourselves, when we have respect for ourselves, we don't treat others poorly and we don't allow others to treat us poorly. And that is such a key message.
Amen, sister. You just summed that up real right. It was awesome. Yes.
So Alexis, what can parents do to help their children see their value and potential to love themselves?
I think to me, it's really asking hard questions because we live in an era right now where there is so much consumption of media. It really is, we again have to understand the gravitas of what we're up against. And especially when you just see the hypersexualization and objectification that happens within culture, society, media, all of it. And so what I'm finding in the work that I'm doing, whether I'm working with middle school, high school, college, or Fortune 100 female executives, the truth is that we're also consuming that. And so starting younger and younger and younger, girls are becoming so numb to the sexualized, objectified culture that they're now doing it to themselves. They actually don't even need anyone to do it to them. And simultaneously for young men, that just becomes the standard expectation. So for me, it's really asking the hard questions. It's getting them, what I always say, if you can get your, elementary, middle school, high school daughter, son to really think for themselves. That's the main thing, is because there's a generation that is so on autopilot, that is consuming all of this content and just regurgitating it, almost like, these robots who are just like, oh yeah, I'm going to act, think, believe all these things because that's how I've seen it done. So kind of getting them outside of a screen. Again, whether that's their, binging on Netflix or the video games or the music they listen to or the social media, how do we get them to pause and turn it all off and be present long enough to create original thought and to ask them, how do you feel about that? And what are your thoughts on leadership? And, you said this hurt your feelings. Why did it hurt your feelings? Why do you want those $250 pair of jeans? I had a girl recently come up and say, like, will you post about me on social media? And, she's a 12-year-old, and I know it's because she wants more followers, but I don't even think she knows why. And so I looked at her and I said, why? And she was like, I don't know. And I was like, no, I want to better understand. You want me to post about you on social media because I have, within I Am That Girl, we have over 1 million followers. So, are you after followers? Are you after visibility? Are you after validation? And we sat there and we had a deep, rich conversation about something she didn't even understand that she was after. So to me as a parent, it's like, and as a parent, setting down your own phone and getting present with your kids and having just real honest conversations, especially about the taboo stuff.
The book is I Am That Girl, How to Speak Your Truth, Discover Your Purpose, and Be That Girl. If you'd like to get more information about Alexis and her work, you can visit alexisjones.com. Alexis, in our final moments, what's the takeaway? What would you like to leave our listeners with?
I think oftentimes it's easy to say, like, I want to change the world and I want to do all this good. And one of my favorite, most simple quotes by Mother Teresa is, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. And I will be so brave as to make an addendum and say, go home and love your family and go home and love you hard. That's what we need more of. That changes the world more profoundly than anything else, is to have the audacity to go home and love your family and love yourself so radically hard.
Alexis, thank you so much for joining us and for discussing ways to help us discover our purpose, live in power, and be that girl or woman.
I so appreciate it.
This is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found the show informative. At Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life, we believe that knowledge is power. Take what you've learned, apply it, and live your best life now. Remember that the information provided are the opinions of our guests and should never replace the advice of a professional who knows your personal situation. If you'd like more information, visit our website, CYACYL.com. While on the site, listen to past shows on demand, read our digital magazine, take part in the book club, check out our team, and be sure to follow the show on social media. Until next time, this is Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in.